In old school RuneScape, bossing tends to be the best way to make a lot of GP an hour. Nowadays, there are tons of different bosses that are fun to fight, and they can make you a lot of money. Hey everybody, it's Dak here from the Ed Boys, and today we're going over my top 10 PVM moneymakers in the game. A little emphasis on my top 10. These bosses aren't purely ordered by just how much money they make. I will also take into consideration how easy or difficult the boss is, the requirements for getting into the boss, and most importantly, how much I enjoy fighting the boss. Now, there's a lot more than 10 good, viable bossing moneymakers in the game, so just because a boss hasn't made my top 10 at the moment doesn't mean that it's not a good bossing moneymaker by any means. At number 10, we have the Money Dragon, Vorkath. Vorkath is not very difficult to kill and has very consistent drops. The main requirement is completing Dragon Slayer 2, which is a Grandmaster quest, but that's not too much to ask for a solid moneymaker that's been constantly making players good GP for like 7 years now. In fact, superior Dragon Bones, as well as many other items that Vorkath drops, are kind of up in price at the moment. They're very up in price at the moment, so Vorkath is doing better than ever. You can start Vorkath with pretty weak gear as well. Be sure to check out my budget bossing money-making playlist that is linked in the description. At number 9, I'm taking us out to the wilderness to fight the spider Venenatus, with a small shout out to Spindle, which is the weaker version of the boss as well. These spiders are currently very solid GP an hour, and they're incredibly easy to fight. The Voidwaker gem that can drop from them is nearly 50 mil. It is a rare drop, but not rare enough that you need to feel super lucky to get it, and even while you're not getting that big ticket item, the rest of the drops do add up very well. The only downside, obviously, is being in the wilderness, which means you can face PKers. As long as you don't bring expensive items to risk, this really doesn't matter. You're going to make a lot more money than you lose from the PKers, and the bosses are fairly weak, so you don't need high tier gear to get good kills per hour. Even prior to the Wildy Boss rework a couple years ago, Venenatus treated me very well, other than maybe my Venenatus pet grind. For those who know, you know. At number 8, we're looking at the Phantom Muspa. This boss is similar to Vorkath since it is a solo-only boss, and there's always an instance available for you, so you never have to like find a world or anything like that. And the drops are very consistent. Without getting a Venator shard, you can still get like 3 mil GP an hour, and then the shard, which is only a 1 in 100 drop, costs like 14.5 mil at the moment, which is a very nice bonus every like 4 or 5 hours of Phantom Muspa grind. The boss also has good mechanics for reacting to switching your prayers and then working on your footwork, so in general it's a good boss for getting better at bossing as well. The quest requirement, Secrets of the North, it's a tough quest, but it is lower tier than, say, a Dragon Slayer 2 or a Desert Treasure 2, so the Phantom Muspa is a pretty accessible boss as well. In the 7th spot, I am slotting in the Phosani's Nightmare. This boss is very difficult to kill, meaning it'll take some more time and effort to reach the expected average GP an hour. Last year they adjusted the drop rates here, making it a little bit easier to get uniques, and they also gave the Inquisitor's set a little bit of a buff when using the mace, so overall it gave this boss a little bit more life. For me, Phosani's Nightmare is some of the most fun I've ever had in a single boss fight. It's incredibly engaging. A single mistake can have you taking like 70 plus damage very easily, and there is a chance for a few different items that are worth way over 100 mil GP. Mostly I find that the boss is just a lot of fun though, which may not be the case if it keeps killing you, but if a boss can't fight back, then it ends up getting a little bit boring a little bit faster. Number 6, we have our first raid on the list, the Tombs of Amascut. Raids are like big dungeons with multiple high-level bosses that can be tackled with a large team or in solo adventures as well. Raids are generally considered endgame content as they are high-level, and the unique drops from raids can be very expensive. Specifically for Tombs of Amascut, the Tumekin's Shadow carries a lot of weight for the GP an hour since it's worth over 1.1 bill GP. You can still make a lot of money before you ever land a Tumekin's Shadow, but the mega rare is definitely a game changer. It's not like having to win the lottery though. The Shadow is rare, but not rare enough that you can't effectively grind one out. In other words, averages are averages, and Tombs of Amascut averages at pretty good GP an hour with high invocations. At number 5, we have another raid with the Chambers of Xeric, which was the first raid added to old school RuneScape. Similar to Tombs of Amascut, you can make pretty solid cash here, but it becomes a lot of money when you add in the Twisted Bow, which is a very rare item. The Twisted Bow is more rare to pull from Chambers than getting a Shadow from the Tombs of Amascut, but the T-Bow is also like 1.5, almost 1.6 billion GP, so it is a pretty big payday. I've mostly got Cox above Toa because I enjoy the raid a little bit more. It was the first raid in the game, so maybe I'm a little nostalgic about it, but I love sending Chambers of Xeric. There's also multiple items that are over 100 mil that you can get that's not the T-Bow, like the Ancestral Robe Top, Ancestral Robe Bottom, the Coda Insignia, the Elder Mauls, and then even the Dragon Claws and Dragon Hunter Crossbow would be like the second most expensive items that you would get if they were at Tombs of Amascut instead. So the purple lights from Chambers are very solid right now. In the number 4 spot, I've got my good friend Nex. Even after the most ridiculous Nex dry streak I've ever seen during Nexvember, this boss has still treated me and the squad very well. The bots haven't been helping Nex drops stay ridiculously overpriced, but they still are ridiculously overpriced. The Zarite crossbow is very powerful, so that horn drop being like 280 mil is reasonable, but Torva and Zarite Vambraces are still crazy expensive. It is best to grind Nex in teams of like 2 to 6 players, and Nex is pretty high level. It's not like it's very difficult to kill Nex, but you do need to have good stats and good gear, though my upcoming Get Rich with Nex video will be starting with a pretty small budget for the bird. In general, the boss is more of a DPS check than being anything actually difficult. You have a 1 in 43 chance for the team to see a unique though, with most of them being like 200 mil to 300 mil in price, so the money here is ludicrous. Anyone currently watching this video that has attended Nex nights with us knows that the money chicken pays the bills. To start off our top 3, I do have Vardorvis, one of the 4 Desert Treasure 2 bosses. All of the Desert Treasure 2 bosses are very good for GP an hour, though they clearly require completing Desert Treasure 2, which is not an easy quest. They are heavily carried by uniques, similar to like Nex and Phosani's Nightmare, but if I don't include the Soul Reaper Axe piece that you can get from Vardorvis, it still currently averages out just under Chambers of Xeric and Tombs of Amascut at the moment, mostly thanks to that Ultor ring. I do say not including the axe piece, since you do have to get all the other axe pieces to be able to actually make money from just the one piece, which is fair, but also at that point, it's hard to say that Vardorvis was making you all that money alone. Vardorvis is a very engaging fight as well, mostly with moving your character around and footwork, which I love, but reacting to like the head popping up with your protect range does add a little bit more to watch as well. It's not an easy fight, which can be frustrating as well, making it harder to learn and seem like it's going to take forever to grind out a drop rate, but practice makes perfect. Sometimes it is nice to have like a chill grind to work on, but then when I'm trying to send some bossing, I love having a fight that is actually intense and actually makes me play the game. At the number 2 spot, we have the only raid left over in the Theater of Blood. Tob hits the same main points that the other raids do. It's team content with a lot of engaging bosses to fight, and the potential for a very expensive mega rare item, the Scythe of Vitur, which is currently over 1.8 billion GP. You can't really solo Tob. I mean, like, you can solo Tob, I guess, but it is incredibly difficult compared to soloing the other 2 raids, so realistically a team is needed. Sometimes needing friends can be seen as a downside, but this is some of the best team content in the game, since one teammate messing things up can mess with the rest of the team. It makes for actually a lot of fun bossing with the boyos every time you do a Tob run. The Theater of Blood is definitely challenging content, but it is very engaging, so this is similar to what I was saying about Vardorvis, similar to how I feel about Phosani's Nightmare. It's a lot of like difficult bossing, maybe that can be frustrating or not as easy to get into, but in the long run, you're playing the game more. That's really what makes the game fun, is like actually doing the things. It is an all-boss raid, which can be completed in under 20 minutes with high-tier gear, so you can grind out KC pretty hard, making it reasonable to try and get one of those scythe drops. And finally, for my number 1 PVM moneymaker in old school RuneScape, we've got the Fortis Coliseum. The Coliseum is wave-based content similar to the Fight Caves or Inferno. The difference here is that you can actually get some loot from the Coliseum. There are 12 waves total in the Coliseum, each wave being more difficult than the last, with the final boss, Soul Heredit, on wave 12. When you complete all 12 waves, you do receive an uncharged Dizana's Quiver, which is best in slot for your range cape. So this is big content for getting a cape upgrade, but it can be repeated for making even more profit. I mean, you can make a lot of money before you complete all 12 waves as well. Just wave 1 farming is a viable starting moneymaker, since you always get those Sunfire shards. The Coliseum is engaging, high-level PVM, though it's not that high level for the first couple of waves. It's a solo-only instance that's available to grind at any point in time, and the loot actually maxes out to be the best money in the game once you've gotten good at the content. There are 0 thumbs down to be had when it comes to the Fortis Coliseum, other than maybe the learning curve. It's not as easy to complete the Coliseum as some of these other bosses, so it does take a lot of effort to get the max GP an hour potential here, but you don't have to be doing max runs or full runs to actually be getting started and making money. That is really the case with any bossing moneymaker. You shouldn't be expecting like the max GP an hour when you first try out a boss. To be honest, a big part of what makes bossing fun is that first chunk of KC while you're learning and it's still difficult. When the boss fights back and there's a chance that you could die and fail to run, that's a lot more exciting than a boss that you're pretty much guaranteed every kill and then like the same loot as last time. Looking at you, giant mole. Like I mentioned early in the video, there are tons of viable bossing moneymakers in the game currently, which means that there's plenty of good moneymakers that didn't make it onto my list here. It doesn't mean that I don't like them or they're not viable in any way, it just means they didn't make my top 10 list. So what is your favorite PvM moneymaker in old school RuneScape? Are there any bosses that you like to grind out that I didn't have on my list here? Let me know in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching my updated top 10 bossing moneymakers list, and best of luck with your bossing grinds.